Lagos, Nigeria, and across the globe, Souq News TV is your #1 station focusing on business, economy, and development. With global digital reach, we connect Africa's pulse to the world stage. Welcome to Souq News Television, and here we go beyond the headlines, from breaking news, in-depth conversational programs, to market analysis and indices. From policies affecting growth to unique documentaries, from live event coverage to bespoke productions, we deliver content that connects you to the world. At Souq News Television, we provide news surrounding business, economy, and development, infomercials and jingles that stand out, short and long-form documentaries crafted to international standards, independent production spaces with full technical support, special coverage for individual and corporate events, a special form of documentaries through our prestige package, Immortals, where we tell your story the way you'd love it, and business support services tailored for small enterprises. Souq News TV, powered by FemWatch Limited, also home to the Isle 95.9 FM Lagos and Kasua 99.7 FM Kano, and Emirate News Television Abuja, together forming Africa's trusted media powerhouse. Storytelling, coverage, and connection that matters. Souq News TV, your home for business, economy, and development.
Eko Atlantic has become Nigeria's most sought-after city for its high-end infrastructure, prestige, and well-planned city layout, as reflected in an 8-lane boulevard, about 13 internal bridges, underground cables, and green footprints defined by over 30,000 trees. Additionally, having a building in the city has become a trend among the so-called big boys, as was the case with Old Ikoyi, Victoria Garden City, popularly called VGC, Osborne Foreshore, and now Banana Island. In this special report, Bayo Olaoye states that this talk of "I belong" and the prestige mentality has also spread to the big firms. Before now, Kingsway and Ozumba Mbadiwe used to say that Victoria Island were the go-to locations for high-rise office buildings. These locations are home to iconic developments such as Kingsway Towers, Heritage Palace, Fanfa Towers, the Wings and the Waves, among others, making them Nigeria's equivalent of Silicon Valley. The Eko Atlantic City was modeled after the skyscraper district of Manhattan Island in New York City. It has become the new destination for big-ticket corporate firms which are building or relocating their new headquarters to the 10-square-kilometer city, rising off the coast of the Atlantic Ocean in Lagos. The city is attracting investment interests in both residential and commercial real estate, the latest being MTN Nigeria, preparing to build a new headquarters. MTN is coming on the heels of First Bank, which recently turned the turf to build a 40-floor corporate head office, making the city's most iconic development so far. Prior to this courageous and ambitious entry into Eko City by MTN, First Bank, Dangote Group, and the Embassy of the United States of America have taken positions there, developing a new head office and a diplomatic facility respectively. Much earlier, a co-development company had occupied the city as the developer of the Azuri Towers, offering both residential and commercial facilities for high clients and corporate bodies. Arkaland Property Investment and Oak Homes are also in the city, developing A&A Towers simultaneously. These are the residential developments that will be standing on the 22nd floor and the 33rd floors respectively. Other developments are the Pan-African Towers by Periwinkle Residences, Eco Pearl with Champagne Tower and Eco Pearl Black Tower, Amni Towers and Ani International Petroleum Development Company, and Louisville Towers by Total Energy Staff Cooperative and Multipurpose Society. Louisville will comprise 300 residential homes spread between 2 towers, a world-class sporting center and a club, retail outlets, and other facilities. It is designed to employ modern technology to achieve smart living and high standards. Eco Atlantic is an exclusive luxury city with superior infrastructure that appeals to the kind of investors we have seen in the city so far.
When Emeke talks about black gold, he isn't referring to oil. He buys it in sacks, not barrels. He sells it from a metal shack to customers in Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital. Charcoal is big business in Africa. He says there's enough money in the charcoal trade to make the wealthy envious in several African countries. Charcoal has fueled Africa's urbanization. It is energy dense and difficult to regulate, much like the cities it powers. Despite concerns about pollution, deforestation, and illicit money flows, charcoal remains indispensable. In this special report, written by Bayo Olaoye, he explored the value of Africa's charcoal economy, estimated to be worth billions of dollars, and assesses its viability. Nearly 200 million Africans cook primarily with charcoal, including 27% of urban dwellers. That share has grown since 1960, replacing much of its previous reliance on firewood. If there's been an African energy transition, it has been from one type of wood fuel to another. Charcoal's appeal lies in its convenience. By weight, it contains nearly twice as much energy as the wood it's derived from, making it easier to transport and ideal for megacities with fragile infrastructure. In Kinshasa, a Congolese metropolis of 18 million people, almost everyone cooks with it. Never before have cities grown so large while relying so heavily on wood-based fuel. In rural Africa, tens of millions of people make charcoal using earth kilns, outnumbering the world's coal miners. The process involves heating wood under low oxygen conditions to remove moisture and volatile gases. Logs and branches are stacked in a pile, covered with grass and soil, and burned for several days. This yields 1 to 2 tons of charcoal from 10 tons of dry wood. The process emits more carbon than simply burning the wood. Much of the raw wood is free, harvested from farmers' own land or from forests. Many charcoal producers are farmers selling to traders when in need of cash. Others are entrepreneurs who bring in work teams, distribute chainsaws, and pay off landowners or local chiefs. Locals often complain about outsiders cutting down their trees. In Kenya and Uganda, vigilantes have even attacked charcoal trucks. Africa's charcoal trade is estimated to be worth tens of billions of dollars, possibly more than the continent earns from cocoa or coffee. The money trail often leads to soldiers or government officials. The United Nations Security Council banned charcoal exports from Somalia because jihadists were earning millions by exporting it to the Gulf, where shisha smokers prize the aroma of acacia wood. Charcoal production leaves destruction in its wake. In Mozambique's Mabalane district, 2/3 of the woodland was affected by charcoal harvesting in the decade leading to 2018, according to one study. To mitigate the damage, governments oscillate between legalizing the trade through licensing and forest management and banning it outright. Sudden bans, however, often fuel a black market. Enforcement becomes a chaotic negotiation involving traders, officials, police, soldiers, and local communities. Lorry drivers move at night and pay bribes to checkpoints. In Uganda, where charcoal production is banned, it's smuggled across the border and transported under official seals from South Sudan. Other policies promote clean cooking. Liquid petroleum gas, LPG, which burns cleaner than charcoal, is exempted from VAT in Kenya. Some companies have introduced metered gas canisters so consumers can pay as they go, easing upfront costs. Today, more than half of urban Kenyans use LPG as their main cooking fuel. Bond Manufacturing, a company known for efficient stoves, has stopped selling its charcoal models and now promotes electric stoves subsidized by carbon credits. Experts say charcoal is on the decline in Kenya, though it remains prevalent in countries like Madagascar and Zambia, where alternatives are limited. Phasing out charcoal will have economic consequences. The trade is informal and decentralized, while gas is distributed through large firms and creates fewer jobs. Charcoal provides roughly 275 workdays per terajoule consumed, compared with 95 for electricity and 15 for LPG. Gas imports also strained foreign currency reserves. For now, most consumers juggle multiple energy sources. Charcoal production in Africa is still growing at about 2% annually. But one thing is clear: as long as there is the ghetto, there will always be charcoal. I'm Moyosore Adebi for Souq News TV. The Trump administration has once again thrust U.S. immigration policy into the global spotlight with the recent announcement of a new voluntary self-deportation program that offers a $1,000 stipend to undocumented immigrants who agree to leave the country on their own. This incentive-based strategy is a calculated shift from the traditional, more aggressive deportation measures and is already stirring debate among policymakers, immigration advocates, and the public alike. The program, introduced in early May 2025, is being implemented by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. It allows undocumented migrants to register for voluntary departure using the CBP-1 app, after which they will receive a government-funded flight and a $1,000 stipend upon confirmation of their exit. Homeland Security officials argue that this move is designed to save taxpayers significant amounts of money. According to data provided by the DHS, a forced deportation process costs the government an average of $17,121 per individual. In contrast, the stipend program is seen as a cost-effective alternative that also reduces the strain on overcrowded detention centers and court dockets. This new measure is a part of a broader, intensified effort by the Trump administration to curb illegal immigration and tighten control over the U.S. southern border. Since returning to power, President Trump has reinstated several policies from his first term, while introducing new ones aimed at deterring undocumented migrants. Deportation numbers have surged, with nearly 66,000 individuals removed from the U.S. within the first 100.
Hello and welcome to Souq News Television. This is the news update. I am Olumide Shokoya. Now let's begin. President Bola Tinubu has approved the exclusion of all Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria FAN properties within and around airport from being sold to private individuals. We'll go on a short break and we'll be right back.
The rise and fall of Nigeria Airways is a story steeped in mismanagement and missed opportunities. Established in 1958, Nigeria Airways, the national carrier, initially soared as a symbol of national pride. However, a series of missteps led to its unfortunate demise. In 2008, financial mismanagement became its Achilles heel. The airline became bloated with an oversized workforce, hemorrhaging money on profitable routes while neglecting crucial safety maintenance. These issues stemmed from a lack of
Welcome back. President Bola Tinubu has approved the exclusion of all Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria FAN properties within and around airports from being sold to private individuals. The decision, announced by Aviation Minister Festus Keyamo at the Federal Executive Council approval, aims to ensure critical aviation staff such as air traffic controllers, firefighters, and security personnel reside close to their workstation for emergency and operational efficiency. Keyamo explained that some of the properties had been wrongly listed for sale by a past presidential committee, sparking ownership dispute. He reaffirmed that all FAN quarters nationwide are to remain government-owned and reserved for strictly essential staff. He stated that the move safeguards aviation safety and restores order around airport environments. The federal government has unveiled plans for a medical relief program and expanded social health protection to ease healthcare costs for Nigerians. Announcing this at the Joint Annual Review Conference 2025, Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Mohammed Patey, said the decision followed citizen surveys showing improved access to services but persistent affordability concerns. Patey noted that health insurance coverage has doubled to 12%. Driven by mandatory insurance and vulnerable groups fund, with skilled birth attendance now exceeding 90% nationwide. Finance Minister Wale Edun reaffirmed the government's commitment to sustainable health financing, disclosing efforts to raise $150 billion for vaccine procurement, while urging states to prioritize healthcare spending for equitable growth. Now, Nigeria is targeting $20 billion in new investment through 70 priority gas projects aimed at driving industrial growth, energy security, and job creation. The projects identified by the Decade of Gas Secretariat are drawn from 200 renewed and span over power generation, fertilizer, petrochemicals, and gas export, with a combined demand potential of 15 billion standard cubic feet per day. Now, according to Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority and NDPRA Chief Executive Farouk Ahmed, the initiative marks a major step towards Nigeria's 2030 gas-powered economy. He said the projects will undergo a 3-week validation to access feasibility and fast-track execution. The authority is also reforming pricing and infrastructure frameworks to attract investors and align with global sustainability standards, positioning Nigeria as a regional gas and energy hub. Chairman of the Senate Committee on Capital Market, Senator Osita Ezunaso, has urged the federal government to review the 30% capital gains tax, CGT, on share sales, warning that the policy had already wiped out about 2 trillion naira from the Nigerian exchange's market capitalization. Speaking at the money line within Nancy Investment Forum 2025 in Abuja, Ezunaso said the steep tax increase from 10% to 30% on share disposals worth 150 million naira and above had triggered panic sales and weakened investor confidence. He called for a balanced tax regime that protects investments while supporting fiscal stability, stressing that predictable policies are key to sustaining Nigeria's capital market reforms. Other speakers, including Fiscal Policy Chairman Taiwo Oyedele, clarified that disposals below 150 million naira remain tax-exempt and reinvested proceeds are not taxable. They reassured investors that ongoing tax reforms under President Bola Tinubu's administration aim to promote fairness, protection low-income earners, and build a simpler market-friendly tax system to restore confidence in Nigeria's financial markets. President Donald Trump has signed legislation ending the longest government shutdown in the United States history, restoring operations after 43 days of closure that disrupted food assistance delayed federal worker pay, and strained the aviation sector. The Republican-controlled House passed the funding package by 222 to 209, backed by Trump, despite strong opposition from Democrats demanding an extension of federal health insurance subsidies. The bill, which extends funding through January 30, allows federal employees to resume work immediately, while the government continues to add about $1.8 trillion yearly to its national debt. Trump, speaking during a late-night Oval Office signing, vowed that the country can never let this happen again. The shutdown, which reduced the gross domestic product growth and halted key economic data releases, left both parties with political bruises. 50% of Americans blame the Republicans and 47% blame Democrats. Now, according to Reuters, the polls, while reopening brings relief ahead of busy Thanksgiving period, analysts say data gaps and economic recovery may take months to stabilize. Many thanks for watching. Do well to follow us on all our social media platforms at Souq News Television. I am Olumide Shokoya. Coming up shortly is Souq Business Landscape. Please stay with us.
Traffic regulations are practices put in place in both developed and underdeveloped countries. They are designed to ensure the safety of all road users, reduce accidents, and promote orderly movement. Either you are a driver or a passenger, every road user is required to understand and follow these laws. Under obligations, drivers must possess a valid driver's license issued by the authorized body. In Nigeria, this is the Federal Road Safety Corps, FRSC.
Individual, like I've just said, most Nigerians, as we know, celebrate their date of birth. And as such, when you obtain a driver's license, say for 3 years or 5 years, you already know if you do it today, in the next 5 years, when you'll be celebrating your birthday, you are already aware that your license is due for renewal. You don't have to even wait until that date. By law, a month to that date, you should start processing the renewal of the driver's license.
While other countries have their respective designated authorities, vehicles must also be properly registered and insured, with up-to-date documentation readily available when requested by law enforcement officers. Mandatory rules include observing speed limits, which vary depending on the road type. In cities, the limit is 50 km per hour, increasing to 80 km per hour on highways and 100 km per hour on expressways. Before hitting the road, seat belts are mandatory for both drivers and front seat passengers. Also, all traffic signs, signals, and road markings must be obeyed. Drivers must remember that using a mobile phone while driving is a punishable offense unless assisted by a hands-free device. Drunk driving is illegal, with penalties ranging from fines and license suspension to imprisonment. For passengers, wearing seatbelts is essential, and distracting the driver should be avoided at all costs. In public transport, any reckless driving should be reported to the authorities, and pedestrians, on the other hand, must also cross at designated pedestrian crossings, zebra crossings, or pedestrian bridges where available. They should follow pedestrian traffic lights and only cross when the signal indicates it is safe. Looking left, right, and left again before stepping onto the road is crucial and should avoid running while crossing. Making eye contact with approaching vehicles ensures they see you before you proceed. By following traffic regulations, road users can prevent accidents, protect lives, and contribute to smoother transportation for everyone. Grace Komolafe, Souq News Television.
The rise and fall of Nigeria Airways is a story steeped in mismanagement and missed opportunities. Established in 1958, Nigeria Airways, the national carrier, initially soared as a symbol of national pride. However, a series of missteps led to its unfortunate demise. In 2008, financial mismanagement became its Achilles heel. The airline became bloated with an oversized workforce, hemorrhaging money on profitable routes while neglecting crucial safety maintenance. These issues stemmed from a lack of transparency and accountability. The government, as the majority owner, failed to implement proper checks and balances, allowing mismanagement to foster. Weak regulatory oversight likely played a part as well, with instances of impounded aircraft due to unpaid debts and safety concerns raised by international bodies. Ultimately, the crippling debt burden proved unsurmountable, forcing Nigeria Airways to cease operations, leaving a void and a valuable lesson for the future. This lack of transparency and accountability isn't unique to state-owned airlines. Several privately owned airlines have also suffered the same fate. Effective corporate governance, including robust financial management and adherence to safety regulations, is essential for any airline to succeed. The broader lesson here is the critical role of corporate governance in the aviation industry. Effective management, robust financial strategies, supportive economic policies, and modern infrastructure are crucial for the growth and success of airlines. Addressing these challenges requires a concerted effort from both the government and the private sector to foster a conducive environment for aviation to thrive. Corporate governance is a multifaceted discipline that encompasses a wide range of processes, customs, policies, laws, and institutions that influence how a corporation is directed, administered, and controlled. The primary goal of corporate governance is to enhance economic efficiency with a strong focus on maximizing shareholders' welfare. Effective corporate governance has been linked to improved organizational performance, a fact supported by numerous studies. For airlines, factors such as board compositions, management practices, and regulating compliance significantly impact performance and operational efficiency and customer satisfaction are paramount. Robust corporate governance ensures that airlines operate transparently, ethically, and in alignment with both regulatory standards and stakeholder expectations. This is crucial for maintaining public trust, ensuring operational sustainability, and achieving long-term profitability. Across the Atlantic, one airline consistently ranks among the world's most profitable, Delta Airlines. What propels this country to such heights? The answer lies in its unwavering commitment to strong corporate governance. Delta's governance structure is robust, featuring a strong independent board of directors. This board comprises individuals with diverse backgrounds, skills, and experiences, ensuring a wide range of perspectives in decision-making processes. As of December 31, 2023, the board includes 10 independent directors and 2 non-independent members, one being the Chief Executive Officer and the other a nominee from the Airline Pilots Association. Diversity extends to gender, race, and ethnicity, with 1 out of 12 directors representing historically underrepresented groups. Key committees including audit, corporate governance, personnel and compensation, safety and security, and finance play critical roles in overseeing various aspects of operations and governance. By bridging the gap between Delta's global success and the realities of the Nigerian aviation industry, a thriving future can be achieved. For regulators, strengthening regulations in Nigeria's aviation industry involves implementing stricter enforceable measures to discourage irresponsible practices while protecting consumers, employees, and investors. This includes a thorough review of ownership structures by setting up minimum competency standards for owners, exploring diversified ownership models, and enforcing stringent disclosure requirements. Regular independent audits should be conducted, extending beyond mere compliance to identify areas for improvement in operational safety and sustainability practices, thereby fostering a more robust and reliable aviation sector. Bayo Olaoye, Souq News.
The world of business is one filled with men and women willing to dine with risk. And when we seek African business shapers, we see individuals who have denied self to build conglomerates. From controlling over 90% of diesel trade in Nigeria, to almost throwing in the towel, then getting on the Forbes list, we present Olufemi Peter Otedola. The Nigerian businessman and philanthropist was born in Ibadan, the capital of Oyo State, on the 4th of November, 1962, into the family of late Sir Michael Otedola, the governor of Lagos State from 1992 to 1993. The University of Lagos Staff School, Akuka, welcomed Olufemi for his primary education and secondary education at Olivet Baptist High School, Oyo. Olufemi proceeded to Obafemi Awolowo University, Ife, for his first degree, graduated and joined the family printing press business, working hard and gaining experience. Femi Otedola ventured out starting Center Force Limited. The company focused on finance, investment, and trading. The oil and gas sector was Femi Otedola's next port of call. From quite a very humble beginning in the oil and gas sector, utilizing connections and networks of family and friends, he cultivated partnerships in diesel supply chain. Him being the last man to the final consumer. Challenges breed opportunities, and in Femi's case, it was a late delivery of diesel from his supplier with a broken truck, and he caught the idea. He could do better and provide better services. He ventured into diesel supply business, buying diesel from a retailer and supplying to companies. Femi Otedola encountered several difficulties securing his supply and timely meeting the demands of his growing clients. This definitely was an opportunity he identified in the fuel retail market. Otedola secured the finance, and Zenon Petroleum and Gas Limited was born, petroleum products marketing and distribution company. Otedola, owner and chairman of Zenon, in 2004 invested 15 billion naira in downstream infrastructure development and acquired storage depots at Ibadan, Apapa, as well as 4 cargo vessels, amounting to a combined total storage capacity of 147,000 metric tons. Zenon Petroleum and Gas Limited also acquired a fleet of 100 DAF fuel tanker trucks. By 2005, Zenon controlled a major share of the Nigerian diesel market, supplying fuel to most of the major manufacturers in the country, including Dangote Group, Cadbury, Coca-Cola, Nigerian Breweries, MTN, Unilever, Nestle, and Guinness. Zenon Petroleum and Gas was the name on major invoices, and Femi Otedola the name on every lips, playing toe-to-toe with major multinationals. Zenon, in a very short period, silenced the competition and almost unilaterally determined the price of diesel in Nigeria. The competitors came to Zenon for supply. Femi Otedola, with the massive success Zenon Petroleum and Gas achieved, bought a 28.7% stake in African Petroleum. Otedola branched into the financial sector and aggressively stocked up the shares of leading financial houses. He became a top shareholder in Zenith Bank, United Bank for Africa, and the largest importer of diesel in Nigeria. He acquired major shares of Africa's Finance Corporation, Mobile Oil Nigeria Limited, Chevron Texaco, and Visa Phone. Otedola has his hands deep in real estate investments, including an acquisition in February 2007 by Zenon of Starling House in Victoria Island, Lagos from the federal government. Lagos, London, Dubai, Monaco all have the signatures of FO Property Limited. He was appointed chairman of the Transcorp Hilton Hotel Abuja and tasked with driving its expansion and upgraded to a 7-star facility. Otedola has served as a member of the Nigerian Investment Promotion Council since 2004. Was appointed by President Goodluck Jonathan to Nigeria's National Economic Management Team. Otedola is chief executive and president of the Seaforth Shipping Company Limited and was at one point Nigeria's largest ship owner after extending control over the distribution of diesel products. One of his ships, a flat-bottom bunker vessel with a storage capacity of 16,000 metric tons, was the first of its kind in Africa. In January 2006, Otedola was appointed a non-executive director of Transnational Corporation of Nigeria PLC, a multi-sectoral conglomerate established in 2004 by then President Olusegun Obasanjo to respond to market opportunities requiring heavy capital investment in Nigeria and across sub-Saharan Africa. He held this post until February 2011. Otedola was appointed chairman and chief executive of African Petroleum in 2007 through the acquisition of controlling stake in the business. Following Otedola's entry into the company, African Petroleum share price rose sharply, increasing the market capitalization from 36 billion to 217 billion naira in 6 months. In March 2009, Otedola became the second Nigerian after Aliko Dangote to appear on the Forbes list of dollar-denominated billionaires with an estimated net worth of $1.2 billion. Otedola announced a move to upgrade African Petroleum's liquefied petroleum gas storage terminals in Lagos, Kano, and Port Harcourt in October 2009. Harsh economic conditions necessitated by the slump in the oil prices and credit squeeze of 2008-09 led African Petroleum to record a loss in 2009. With the world oil price crash came difficult moments for Zenon and Otedola. He was very close to complete bankruptcy.
I said to myself, I was not going to have friends and enemies. I was going to have only competitors. I had two options: commit suicide or weather the storm.
African Petroleum, rebranded in December 2010, changed its name to Fort Oil PLC. Otedola paid his near $1 billion debt and invested in the financial industry, making him a top shareholder in Zenith Bank and United Bank for Africa. Otedola restructured the business, focusing on technology and improved corporate governance, and in 2012, Fort Oil returned to profit. Otedola financed 57% of Fort Oil subsidiary, Amperion Limited, which acquired the 414 megawatt Girigu power plant for $232 million in 2013. Fort Oil improved financial position and diversification into power generation resulted in a 1,321% rise in its share price. The first half of 2014 saw the company's pre-tax profit more than double year on year to 4.1 billion naira. Revenue growth for the whole year was 33%. Fort Oil sold 70% of its equity to Swiss commodity trader Mercuria Energy Group in September 2015, giving Fort access to global commodity markets. The deal was thought to have given Otedola an estimated $200 million. In 2019, Femi Otedola sold Fort Oil PLC and announced plans to change focus from oil to power with his company, Girigu Power PLC. Girigu Power PLC became the first power generation company to list on Nigerian Stock Exchange, demonstrating to stakeholders in the sector how they can fix financing and make profits sustainably. The company's market capitalization is now 726.75 billion naira, and the share price now 290.7 naira from the 2.5 billion shares that were listed at 100 naira each. Otedola, the chairman of Geregu Power, sold down a Geregu stake to bring on institutional investors. In October 2021, Femi Otedola was announced as the single largest shareholder of First Bank plc. FBN Holdings, the parent company of First Bank Limited, witnessed a commendable 437.9 billion naira surge in market capitalization. FBN Holdings appointed billionaire Femi Otedola as the new chairman of its board of directors effective January 31st, 2024. Femi Otedola has had its share of controversies. Zeno was among the number of companies named in an alleged fuel subsidy scam report. This was followed by a case against Farouk Lawan for bribery. Otedola has also lost in the ever-evolving competing space of business acquisitions. Transcorp and Huheli Power Plant are two notable projects he closely bidded and lost. Femi Otedola philanthropy is quite remarkable. Otedola made a 300 million naira donation to the completion of the National Ecumenical Center in Abuja. In 2007, he gave 200 million to the State Security Trust Fund in a drive to reduce crime in Lagos. Donated 100 million naira to the Otedola College of Primary Education in Egbe. In 2008, he donated 80 million to the Faculty of Agriculture at the University of Port Harcourt. Femi Otedola pledged and redeemed $25,000 to the Super Eagles in a match against Algeria in 2019 AFCON. He gave all 750 students of Augustine University 1 million naira each. Femi Otedola sits comfortably on the Forbes billionaires list of top 20 richest people in Africa. Femi Otedola is married to Mrs. Nana Otedola and have 4 children: Olawumi Christy Tolani, Florence Ifeoluwa, Elizabeth Temi, and Fewa Otedola. Olufemi Peter Otedola is a standout astute business executive.
Two widely used and deeply troubling terms dominate discussions around Nigerian emigration: japa and brain drain. Japa, a word that has made its way into the Oxford English Dictionary, means to leave Nigeria for another country, often Europe or America, in pursuit of education, job opportunities, or better economic prospects. It also connotes to escape or to flee. The second term, brain drain, refers to the outflow of skilled professionals, doctors, engineers, academics, and more, leaving Nigeria to contribute their talents to other nations. As a patriot, one might argue that both terms evoke concern. Japa is symptomatic of systemic failures that drive citizens away from their homeland instead of encouraging them to stay and push for reform. As authors Daron Acemoglu and James Robinson emphasized in Why Nations Fail, governance thrives under civic pressure. If the youth and professionals flee, who remains to demand accountability and enforce positive change? Likewise, brain drain depletes the country's human capital. When Nigeria's best-trained professionals are developing other nations, the country is left with fewer hands to build its own future. However, this narrative is shifting. As Bayo Olaoye explores in this special report, there is a compelling case for viewing the Nigerian diaspora not as a loss, but as an economic powerhouse. From brain drain to brain gain. Recent figures from the Nigerian Medical and Dental Council show that only about 27,000 of Nigeria's 71,740 registered doctors currently practice in the country. Thousands of Nigerian doctors, nurses, and health professionals now work in the UK and the US, contributing significantly to those nations' healthcare systems. It's a trend seen across professions, from teachers to tech experts. Critics argue these individuals should be at home, contributing to Nigeria's development. Yet, the picture is not so black and white. According to World Bank economists Art Cray and David McKenzie, poverty can often be a function of where one lives. For many Nigerians, staying home may mean remaining trapped in poverty. In that context, emigration is a rational choice and often a necessary one. Furthermore, the idea of brain drain has evolved into brain circulation or brain gain. Many Nigerians abroad are returning with skills, capital, and
Take Nigeria because it's the mind that needs to first of all be rebranded.
Idris said he's going to be putting Nigerian labor, Nigeria content, and materials first.
If we say Nigeria first and it is just us down here that, are pushing that agenda, it's going to be a big struggle.
Do you think Nigerian firms, Nigerian organizations should start looking at getting their staff involved in this market or buying to keep for their staff?
Within this side, let's also learn citizen diplomacy. See something. This is Souq business landscape.
A very good morning to you and welcome to Souq Business Landscape. Today we're unpacking the headlines shaping Nigeria's economy and global markets. I am Oyinpriye Krumale. Welcome to the program once again. We have different stories that are making the headlines today, but before I intimate you with these stories, let me intimate you with my co-anchor. Hello, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Priya. How you doing?
I'm okay, how are you?
I'm fine, I'm fantastic. Good morning, Nigeria, good morning, world. I hope you had a beautiful night. And we on the business, Souq Business Landscape, we're about to make your night and your day more beautiful, of course, by giving you every story that is trending economically, socially, and to build you up in business and make it better. My name is Swift Aderito, and we're going to be doing justice on this table today.
Great. We are expecting Ayanuba Oluwagbenga Paul will be joining us on the course of the program. But before Benga joins us, let me intimate you with what's making the news. Yes, what's making the news the week. Senate gives the green light for a 1.15 trillion naira domestic loan to plug gaps in the 2025 budget, but questions linger over Nigeria's growing debt load. Nigeria's oil production edges up slightly to 1.4 million barrels per day. That's good news, though still short of OPEC's target. What's holding back full recovery? Civil society groups are pushing back against a planned 15% fuel import tariff that was issued by President Bola Tinubu, warning that it could trigger price hikes before local refining gains full capacity. Apart from that, a major cocaine bust at Lagos port sparks a joint NDLEA investigation with United States and the UK authorities, signaling strong cross-border law enforcement activities. We'll move away from that to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria clashing with NAFDAC over the planned ban on sachet alcohol. Can you beat that? Calling for a phased approach to protect small producers. And beyond the Africa news, United States President Donald Trump signs a bill to ending the country's longest ever government shutdown and reopening agencies and restoring capital services, from fiscal moves to energy shifts, industrial pushback, and global diplomacy. We are tracking the trends driving business decisions this week. We'll go on a break. When we return, we'll commence our business for the day. Do stay with us.
Take Nigeria because it's the mind that needs to first of all be rebranded.
Idris said he's going to be putting Nigerian labor, Nigeria content, and materials first.
If we say Nigeria first and it is just us down here that, are pushing that agenda, it's going to be a big struggle.
Do you think Nigerian firms, Nigerian organizations should start looking at getting their staff involved in this market or buying to keep for their staff?
Within this side, let's also learn citizen diplomacy. See something. This is Souq business landscape.
Fellow Nigerians, Did you know that constituency and executive projects in your communities are not gifts from your legislators? They are projects sponsored by the legislators and funded by the federal government to improve your life and the lives of those around you. These projects belong to you. Without your vigilance, they might never be completed. Don't allow them to fade away into unfulfilled promises. Stand up, take ownership, monitor their progress, demand accountability, and report concerns to ICPC. Call our toll-free line now on 0800 2255 4272 or WhatsApp only on 0806 656 4726. This message is brought to you by the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, with support from MacArthur Foundation and the Center for Democracy and Development in Africa, CDD.
Take Nigeria because it's the mind that needs to first of all be rebranded.
He said he's going to be putting Nigerian labor, Nigeria content and materials first.
If you say Nigeria first and it is just us down here that, are pushing that agenda, it's going to be a big struggle.
Do you think Nigerian firms, Nigerian organizations should start looking at getting their staff involved in this market or buying to keep for their staff?
Within this side, let's also learn citizen diplomacy. See something. This is Souq business landscape.
Welcome back. Many thanks for joining us on the program. Now we begin with this story where the Senate has approved President Bola Tinubu's request to borrow 1.15 trillion naira from the domestic debt market to finance the deficit in the 2025 Appropriation Act. The green light was given on Wednesday after adopting the report from the Senate Committee on Local and Foreign Debt. Senator Manu Aruna, Vice Chairman of the committee, presented the report at plenary session, stating that the loan was necessary to fund the increased spending in the 2025 budget, which now stands at 59.99 trillion naira, up from 5.25 trillion from the executive's original proposal of 54.74 trillion. The approval is part of broader efforts by the government to bridge its growing fiscal deficit. That's according to a report. Lawmakers urged the executive to ensure transparency in debt utilization and prioritize economic activities that will generate revenue to ease the country's debt burden over the long term. Now, our deficit, for me, our budget deficit seems to be growing in leaps and bounds. And I'm saying that because if the target was that fuel will be sold for $75 per barrel, that was during the initial stage of the budget when it was submitted to the lawmakers. After then, the presidency was proposing 2 million barrels per day, which I want to, from a developmental perspective, we can see that we have picked up in our oil production capacity. There's even a story in one of the stories we'll be looking at that currently we are doing 1.4 million barrels. Not currently. This is November. In October, we did 1.4. Whilst in September, we're doing 1.39 million barrels per day. In October, we're doing 1.4. In September, in November, I know we've crossed 1.4 in November, but at the end of November, we will be getting the fact sheet and reports on what we'll be doing, because according to other reports, currently now we're doing 1.6 million barrels per day. And we're edging towards the target of the administration, about 2.1 million barrels per day at $75 per barrel. But oil at the moment is not selling for $75 per barrel. So you can see that the deficit in the budget is, kept mounting and mounting. And I'm not surprised that we are going to get 1.15 trillion naira to finance the deficits that we're currently experiencing in the budget. Though one other word that is coming from the lawmakers, from the Senate, most especially the vice chairman of the committee, is that the executive will put their hands on deck to make sure that every naira and every kobo spent, borrowed to facilitate the execution of the budget reflects not only in the project, but also we get value for our money.
That's critical. Okay, so there was something they talked about. They talked about transparency, and this is what Nigerians want to see, because when the common man on the street hears that, oh, there's a budget deficit and there's going to be a loan taken to boost it, everybody's wondering, is it that they want to do Christmas party again? Because there's a lot of trust issues in the country to some extent. But of course, we also need to inform the general public that this is not an isolated case to Nigeria alone. Even the U.S. government, I think that was 2016, did so, and I can't remember, between 2002 and something they did so. This year, some states in the U.S., I think like Louisiana, has had to have a budget deficit and had to get some money to boost their initial budget so that they can continue with certain projects they are doing or they are carrying on. And so you must understand that, or we need to understand that this is very important, because what they are looking at this for is so that certain projects can be completed. The kind of projects they are looking at being completed are projects that have high demand in infrastructure, road network, building certain things. And this leads to employment, this leads to economic growth. And of course, this is good for stakeholders, because the country is trying to attract more foreign investors. So when certain projects are not completed, especially projects that the government has already said, okay, by the end of this year or before January, they will be ready, and they are not ready. The foreign investors are wondering, the investing confidence, the foreign investors' confidence is not going to be boosted up, because they are wondering, if you cannot finish certain projects because of one or two financial declines, maybe you over-budgeted or under-budgeted on something, how do you expect us to bring in monies from outside the country to put in? So us taking this deficit loan to boost our budget and ensure that the budget is passed and projects are met, that is the reason why we are taking this loan. It's very important. But like they said, let it be transparent. Let us see which projects we are pushing in extra monies to. Let us see the papers, let us see the accounts, so that we are not pushing, it's not going to be like the NNPC project again, where we put in so much money and at the end of the day, the refineries don't work. Whatever projects we are pushing in money to should be projects that are working and projects that are beneficial for the common man.
Yes, I think I have, yes. I would like to state some of the advantages and disadvantages that, will occur by way of this borrowings to facilitate. So some of the advantage we'd have to talk about: boosting liquidity in the local bond market, and strengthening domestic financial institutions, because the government is actually going to acquire the loan from the domestic financial market, from the domestic market. Okay, we have Ayanugba Oluwagbinga Paul joining us virtually. Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me.
Great. It's nice to have you.
And thank you for having me on the show.
Very much welcome. Now, let me quickly reel out the advantages and disadvantages of our first story we're looking at. I talked about boosting liquidity in the local bond market and strengthening domestic financial institutions. Also, it will provide short-term funds to stimulate government projects, because these monies will be channeled towards project construction, building infrastructure, and also reduce dependence on volatile foreign loans, because this is a domestic loan. But the disadvantage is that it's going to increase the debt servicing and a fiscal deficit. Increasing debt service. Yesterday, myself and Olumide and Barrister Toby were talking about how the government, Olumide was more critical about our debts, the mounting debt, and how the debt servicing had increased. And I said, look, before this administration, debt servicing had gone to 90% of our revenue was being channeled into debt servicing. But currently, we are experiencing less than that. We've not gotten to our El Dorado yet, but at least we are doing between 50-60% of our revenues. That is not a good story either, but it has shown significant progress, that it's not what used to be in 2022, 2023. it may crowd out private investors due to the higher interest rates. And also, if mismanaged, it can fuel inflation and weaken economic stability. We understood all this, and we are glad that the government is not going through the ways and means that was previously done. According to experts, that didn't go well for our economic indices when the analysis were given. So, Mr. Benga, I would like to have your thought on this. Our story is based on the Nigerian Senate approving President Tinubu's request to borrow 1.15 trillion naira from the domestic debt market to fund part of the 2025 budget deficit. The total budget now stands at 59.99 trillion naira, almost 60 trillion naira, the highest budget so far in the nation's economic history. It signaled higher government spending than initially proposed, and the borrowing will be raised locally, meaning that the funds will come from domestic financial institutions, pension funds, and the bond market. What's your take on this?
You see, my take is that our country is too small for people not to be able to budget right. This is not the first time they are saying they have overshot their expenditure targets. This is like almost the third time in this year alone. And they did the same thing for 2024. I think they did the same thing for 2023, if I remember correctly. And that makes you ask the question, who are the people doing this budgeting? Because if the people doing the budgeting are doing their budgeting right, then they shouldn't be overshooting their budget. They should have been able to factor in all those situations that led to the overshot of the budget. We do not have any natural disaster happening in the course of the year that we can point to as the unexpected factor. We do not have any epidemic outbreak like COVID that we can point to that it's an unexpected factor. We do not have anything special that you can point to as the unexpected factor that made us have to spend in excess. So you ask yourself that why are we overshooting our budget?
Benga, just a moment.
Why are
Hello,
our
Benga,
budget?
can you hear me? Just a moment. You said we have not done anything spectacular that would have, instigated our over expenditure. But do remember that the budget for the barrel of oil that was attached to this budget was $75 per barrel. And currently now, as we speak, the oil market internationally is below $75. Also, you could remember vividly that our target was 2.1 million barrels per day because oil is directly attached to our budget and the economy as a country. And currently now, even though we have made some level of progress in the barrels of oil we produce daily, we have not attained the 2.1 million barrels per day. And with the some of the few trillion naira that we had in place.
Forget about all those things. Forget about all those English. You don't need to be an economic expert for you to know that it is foolish for anybody in the budget planning team to peg our output, production output, at 2.1 million barrels per day. If it were to be your personal business, you would have sacked those people by now. Because we know that the highest we've done was when this government, I think this year, when they did 1.6, 1.7 million barrels per day. So yes, if you have not reached 1.6, 1.7 million barrels before, and you are targeting 2.1 and you are basing your budget planning on 2.1, it shows that you are a very foolish person. It shows that you don't know your left from your right. Budgets are supposed to be realistic. So if you know that you can reach 2.1, maybe you have been reaching 2.1, you are supposed to say, okay, I'm putting my budget at 1.9 million barrels per day so that there will be excess funds. But you see, because there is no accountability, some people will just get into office. Only God knows how they get promoted in the service, to become permanent.
Sorry, Benga, I need to butt in here again. So sorry, Benga. Let's look at it from this perspective. The whole budget itself, year in, year out, is a financial document, but yet a forecast. Not all the things that are budgeted for and how much is going to spend in each ministry, department, and agency is available in terms of cash. But but they are looking at, just a moment, they are looking at it based on what the nation can do. Some of it based on the economic atmosphere and how they feel it's going to get better in the future. So it's a forecast, and organizations equally carry out some level of forecast with regards to their economic planning and their business planning. Don't you think it's just that if we've made some significant progress, even if we don't attain it, at least to a specific level, we might do justice to it?
My brother, it is this plenty English that we use. All of us, you and I, all journalists in every TV station, every radio station, should be hammering them. It is because sometimes we want to play devil's advocate, which is our job, which is fine because we are the ombudsman, we are supposed to look at all angles, that they will use to escape and they will be saying this and that. The people who are planning the budgets in Poland, the people who are planning the budget in Finland, in Singapore, in Kuwait, do they have two heads? Why are they forecasting and their forecast is mixing up and even, getting excess, not excess in terms of, producing beyond expectation? Why is it that it is only our own that every year in the last 10 years we'll have to borrow to patch one budget, borrow to patch another budget? Simply because we did not plan everything together. Let's forget about the borrowing. Every government will borrow. If you bring, I don't know, even if you bring Jesus Christ to come and rule Nigeria, he might likely borrow. May God forgive me if it sounds blasphemous, but the reality is that let's forget about the borrowing. Let's figure out why can't they plan properly, forecast properly. Okay, so I know an organization, a very big organization. I will mention their name. The budget given to them was to make 1.5 trillion naira this year. Now, that organization looked quite well that it can make 1.5 trillion naira. But the organization went and said, no, you can't put us under any undue pressure. We will only do 1.2 trillion naira. And then they went back and forth. They approved 1.2 trillion naira for them. Now, as we speak, this is November. We are not yet half of November. I think they have reached 1.1 trillion already. And so, which means by the December, they should be able to close out on between 1.3, 1.4 trillion as the money they make for the year. Now, if those people who plan that budget in that organization, which is also a government organization, they don't have two heads. They are human beings. But because they are intelligent, they know their onion. That is why they will do realistic forecasts. Now, if they finish this year with 1.4 trillion, I didn't mean that they agreed to that 1.5 trillion pressure. You will say they didn't meet their budget or target expectation. But they said realistically, you can only do 1.2 trillion. And so if they finish with 1.4 trillion, you will say they met and exceeded their budget expectation. That is what wise people do. That is what the wise people in Poland are doing. That is what the wise people in Finland are doing, despite the fact that they don't have as much natural resources as we do to peg their economy in. In fact, in Finland, more than 8 months of the year is spent in snow, with the day and night fluctuating. Not like we will have our 12-hour day, 12-hour night. Over there, sometimes they will have 16-hour nights. Sometimes they will have 14-hour nights. Sometimes they will have 18-hour nights and very few hours of daylight. You go there by 11 p.m., you will still see the sun up in the sky, but it will not be shining bright or glowing. Sometimes by 10 a.m. in the morning, you will still see the moon up in the sky in those countries. Yet, with all the nature being against them, with all environmental whatever being against them, because these people were intelligent enough to do their planning properly, they don't have some of these challenges that we are having. In fact, some of those countries, their sovereign wealth fund that they save from the excess budgetary allocation and revenue inflow into the country, they invest it into big companies, Fortune 500 companies around the world, and quietly they are controlling the world because they control the major companies that control the world. Why is our own different? Our own is different simply because you can become a director without necessarily meriting it. You just need to be a friend of maybe one politician like the president, like the governor, like a powerful senator, and voila, you don't have to merit it. This problem started in 75, 76, when they said, let's do Federal Character Commission, and we're putting people in position they do not merit. They cannot, their brain cannot carry the office. You see, I don't want to talk about the budget, whether it is good or not, because I do not trust the government to manage budget very well. There is so much trust deficit between me as a Nigerian and the government for a long time that when the government tells me good money, I will have to go outside and check whether it is truly money. So, but my own grouse is that why should it be all the time that our budget, you know, you need 60 trillion naira, plan for 60 trillion naira. Stop planning for 52 or 54 trillion naira and then be readjusting by borrowing unnecessarily over the year. You know, you need to plan for 80 trillion naira, plan for 80 trillion naira. You need to borrow 4 trillion or 30 trillion to make up that 80 trillion. Plan for it all at once so that you don't have to be coming back with supplementary nonsense all the time. If you are a boss in an office and you gave a contract out to somebody and that person said, I'm going to finish this project with 20 naira, and that person keeps coming back to you, Oga, cement don't cost, Oga, iron don't cost, would you, as a human being, would you be pleased? Forget about all the English that want to speak. Won't you think that, say, wine, are you whining my brain? You know, so these are areas that we need to focus on.
All right.
And we need to tell them to get out.
Benga, as much as you are right, we need to also open our hearts to the fact that sometimes there are mistakes. Even in the American budget system, there have been times where they have over-budgeted, under-budgeted.
You are not allowed to make mistakes.
That's what I'm saying, due to oil spillage or something. So sometimes it happens, and I think as much as we are angry, it's already on the board, it's already rolling. What are the advantages? Is it going to be profitable to the economy? At the end of the day, we are looking at the fact that there are certain projects that must be finished. For example, the Calabar, the Cross River, Lagos-Calabar Express Highway, and there are certain stages it must accomplish. And so these budgets must be hit so that this, there are certain manufacturing companies, there are certain projects that we have. And because we are looking at investor confidence, if we do not finish these projects, it's going to cause a lot of problem. What do you think?
If you are an investor, the question I put earlier on, if you are an investor and they told you 30 naira will finish this project and they keep coming back to you that 30 naira is no longer enough, that I have to borrow 10 naira more, I have to borrow 20 naira more, will that boost your confidence? Or when they tell you, Oga, sorry, we know you may not like it, but this project, 30 naira cannot finish it, it's 80 naira that will finish it. And they told you once, you have prepared your mind once, and they don't come back to you, the next time they are coming back to you, they are coming back to hand over the project that has finished. Which one will boost your confidence more as an investor?
Okay, Mr. Benga. Now let's move on to our next story, so we don't overflog the first story. So we have time to touch other stories before we're done today. Now let's move to our next story. It's about crude oil production. Crude oil always makes the news every time. Nigeria's crude oil production rose slightly to 1.401 million barrels per day in October 2025, up from 1.39 million barrels per day in September, according to the latest monthly oil market report by the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. Despite the uptick, the country missed its OPEC-assigned production quota for the third consecutive month, with the last compliance recorded in July 2025. Analysts said that the shortfall continues to reflect challenges in operational capacity, insecurity, and infrastructure deficit. The production figure suggests a marginal recovery but highlights the need for more aggressive reforms and investment to meet international commitment and support Nigeria's revenue generation goals in the face of growing fiscal pressure. Now, in the course of the program, maybe we're going to unveil the current quota that OPEC had given to Nigeria as a member state.
Yes.
Whilst we're doing that, I equally would like to bring to your notice that earlier on, last month or so, it surfaced in the news that, okay, for OPEC, it has given Nigeria 1 point. A steady reflection and improved operational performance across industry, notably Nigeria's crude oil output in August met 96% of its OPEC quota, which is set at 1.5 million barrels per day. It demonstrates the country's capacity. Well, if OPEC is giving us 1.5 million barrels per day, and currently we are doing 1.4, though we've mixed it for months in and months out for 3 times, then it's obvious that we used to churn out less than 1.4 like we experienced, less than 1.39 like we experienced in September, and less than 1.39 in August and in July. So now if we're hitting 1.401, in this month, November, as we speak, I know we are doing more than the 1.4 that we used to do in September, because it's also in the news that we're approaching, if not in 1.6 million barrels per day. But that aside, but there is also a report that Nigeria is looking at approaching OPEC come 2026 because it is well known that we are going to be overshooting the 1.5 million barrels per day that OPEC had advanced to Nigeria as a member state. But most likely we'll be getting or approaching the 1.9 like Benga mentioned earlier in 2026, if not the 2.01 million barrels per day that the president had earmarked for the 2025 budget, even though now it's going to cross to 2026. So if Nigeria will be approaching OPEC for our quota to be raised, it also means that there is the possibility and the potential for us to do 2 million barrels and more than 2 million barrels come next year. Benga, how do you expect that to influence? Do you expect that to influence our budget? And probably we budgeting about 80 trillion, like you said earlier on, for 2026 budget, or 70 trillion. But one thing remains that politicians and subnational government and national government need to answer, and that is budget assessment. I don't think we as a people have, impute more energy and more effort in that aspect of budget performance. Do you think we are heading in the right direction, or what do you think we can do differently to have our budget assessed for it to reflect the work that every administration has done so far, business-wise, economic-wise, and development-wise?
Well, before I answer that question, let me make clarity on how OPEC allocates quotas to countries. So OPEC is the organization of all oil-producing countries in the world that signed up to join it. So it's not necessarily all oil-producing countries in the world that are in OPEC, but those that signed up to join it. So because they wanted to keep price balanced and not fluctuating anyhow in the market, so they would allocate quotas to each country based on their assumed capacity of the country to produce, so that if you are producing steadily at that price, at that amount, the price can be controlled, because they don't want a glut, that's excess production that will make the price crash suddenly, and they don't want so little production that will make the price jump so high that it will become a problem for the people around the world. That is essentially what OPEC does. And so Nigeria, for the longest I know, they used to give us 1.8 million barrels per day. But I'm even surprised when I heard now that it's 1.5 million barrel that is our target and we couldn't meet up. So before you will go to OPEC, you can lie to your countrymen, you can lie to your fellow politicians who don't know their left from their right. But OPEC has a lot of indices and metrics through which they are watching all countries. So if you tell them I can produce 2.1 million barrels and you say give me 2.1 million barrel quota, there are two things that will happen. Once they assess you and they see that you are only lying, you are only bluffing, they may outrightly not give you the 2.1 million barrel, one, or they may decide to give you, knowing fully well that countries like Saudi Arabia, countries like maybe Venezuela,
Venezuela,
that has
Kuwait.
capacity to produce maybe 10 million barrel per day, but they've only given them 3 million barrel per day as the maximum they can produce, and those countries are not happy about it. So with your remaining 600 million barrel that are not meeting up, those ones can produce it, and then they can shoot above that. They are 3.3 million barrels. So officially, they will record that they produce 3 million barrel per day, but they are actually producing maybe 3.6 million or even 5 million barrel per day, because they will take the shortfall from all of you countries who cannot
Yeah.
meet up the quotas given to you. And with that, what happens most of the time is that some of those countries, in order to produce that excess that they have capacity to produce, but because of OPEC quota they can't produce, they can even give foreign mercenaries money to destabilize your own production capacity, or internal saboteurs to destabilize your own production capacity, so that they will be the one producing uh, from their end, because and they will be rightly justified because you can't meet up with the quota, and they don't want the imbalance to show, and so that is what they do. Now, I don't believe that we have any capacity to meet up 2.1 million barrel per day officially now. And when I say officially, it means I am saying I believe somewhere that we might actually be producing more than 2.1 million barrel per day currently, because we cannot account for the millions of barrels that are being stolen, that are unaccounted for all the time. You saw the Senate committee verdict, was it yesterday or during the week, where they said that NNPC should refund the country the sum of 300 and something trillion naira that were unaccounted for. So it shows to you that in one way or the other, we might even have been producing, as we speak, as they are declaring 1.401 million barrel right now.
Yes.
We might even produce maybe 2 million barrel that month of October, but the only one that are accounted for officially is 1.401. So if they want to answer your question that you asked, if they want us to reap the benefits so that the effect on the economy will be visible, all these loopholes where our oil are being stolen needs to be totally blocked. And one of the ways to totally block these loopholes is to make sure that oil producing communities own the oil in their land. You understand? If they don't own it 100%, at least they must, every oil producing community must own at least 10 to 15% of the oil in their land. That's, they don't have to, they just need to protect the place, because they know that once they protect the place, they are protecting their 10 to 15%, which every child, every man, every woman born in those communities will have access to, irrespective of their academic or whatever background. And until we do that, we will not block the loopholes. If people from the north are coming to own all the oil wells in Bayelsa, in Delta, and people from the southwest, or people from the southeast, or people from the north central are coming to own all the oil wells in the south-south, you will not expect me as the south-south person to protect the oil facility. If you like, make it damage. If you like, let it spoil. That will be my attitude. But if I know that because the oil is in my community, automatically my community has 10% stake, such that when I go to school, I can be confident that the bursary that will get to me will pay my school fees. I don't need to worry about school fees because there is 110% from the oil found in my land that is sponsoring my education, that is taking care of my health care, that is taking care of that I am assured that I can easily get a job, when I finish school. I will want to protect those facilities. So government
All
needs
right.
to block those people, one. Then
Okay.
two, government needs to put go and weed out all the civil service and even the politicians. Why would you be putting a politician who study engineering as the budget committee chairman in the Senate, or a politician who studied law, or who studied something that is not related to financial accounting, economic, or economic policy, who did not work in areas that deal with economic policy? How would you be putting them as committee chairman in those? Because you see, all those things count as okay. Somebody told me a story, and I think Sweet also knows the story, that when that our boss started TV back in those years, people were asking our boss to pay for, in the olden days when you on your television at 4 p.m. There's this black, yellow, red color that will first show on the screen before it shows. People were collecting money for her that in order to generate that color. Because she doesn't know her left from her right at that particular point in time. She said she paid. That they said if the TV does not generate that color, that when the face now show, it will not be clear. And she paid. This is a very intelligent woman, very well traveled, knowledgeable woman in other areas of life.
All right.
But because that field she was a novice at that time, looking back, she cracked the joke and we're all laughing at. And that is what is happening at a national scale because we are putting people who don't know their left from their right in offices they are not supposed to be.
All right. Thank you very much.
Brilliantly said. You took a lot of words right out of my mouth when you said a lot of things. And there's something you talked about, which is you are looking at the fact that Nigeria should practice true federalism, where what you own or what resources that are in your land, you should own a certain figure. In America, this is what is done. In fact, there was this community I was watching that they have oil. The children, once a child is born, there's a bond that is set up from the natural resources from the place for you. So you have a trust fund, you have an educational trust fund and all that. Now imagine that happening in Niger Delta. There will be less cases of vandalization, oil spillages, pipelines and all that. I totally agree with you. I also agree with you on the fact that you talked about the importance of other countries probably sabotaging certain countries, because when you cannot meet your quota from OPEC, there's a spill-off, and there are some other countries like Saudi Arabia who seem to be benefiting intensely from all those, especially from Nigeria, because in the last 2-3 years, we seem not to be meeting our quotas. Just once in a while we meet it. But from what I'm looking at from this, I think that the government should do more. Like you said, we should stop putting round pegs in a square hole. We should make sure that everybody that is supposed to be there, like I'm one of the people that is really I'm anti-NNPC. Please, they should forgive me. I really think that organization needs to be turned around and scrutinized, because the damage they have done to Nigeria when it comes to oil production, what our outputs are and all that. But right now, we are looking at meeting a certain target in oil production. That's what this news is saying. And if we can meet this target, then our budget will be better. It will help with better job creation.
Revenue.
It will bring
revenue.
Foreign exchange when it comes to external reserves and all that. So for me, this is good news for Nigeria. But I think the Tinubu's taxation thing that was kicked against strongly by the North, where it is what you have.
No, that's going to be our
next the next story. Brilliant.
So we're due for a break, but I think let's just spend 7-10 minutes on this specific story before we go on a break.
Okay.
And it's the Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa. It has urged the federal government to postpone the proposed 15% import tariff on petrol and diesel, citing potential spikes in pump prices and worsening economic hardship. Speaking at a press conference in the Federal Capital Territory, PACA's Executive Director, Ezenwa Nwagu, said the policy should be held or held off until Nigeria's domestic refining capacity meets at least 80% of national fuel demand. He warned that the current capacity is inadequate and introducing the tariff could drive importers out of the market, triggering supply shortages and surge in fuel prices that would affect businesses and citizens alike. Yes. Swift, please go on.
Okay,
now
so
I want to talk about how PACAC is kicking against the 15% increase by the current.
Okay, so the 15% increase by the current is on one side. I was talking about the taxation. You know that the federal government was talking about the fact that there should be a derivation from each state. So what you produce, you get a certain percent, which most of the northern governors kicked against, and it had to be brought down from probably a 13%, I think, to a 5%, now a 10%.
Okay, we'll go on a
Take Nigeria because it's the mind that needs to first of all be rebranded.
Idris said he's going to be putting Nigerian labor, Nigeria content and materials first.
If you say Nigeria first and it is just us down here that, you know, are pushing that agenda, it's going to be a big struggle.
Do you think Nigerian firms, Nigerian organizations should start looking at getting their staff involved in this market or buying to keep for their staff?
Within this side, let's also learn citizen diplomacy. See something. This is Souq business landscape.
The Trump administration has once again thrust U.S. immigration policy into the global spotlight with the recent announcement of a new voluntary self-deportation program that offers a $1,000 stipend to undocumented immigrants who agree to leave the country on their own. This incentive-based strategy is a calculated shift from the traditional, more aggressive deportation measures and is already stirring debate among policymakers, immigration advocates, and the public alike. The program, introduced in early May 2025, is being implemented by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. It allows undocumented migrants to register for voluntary departure using the CBP-1 app, after which they will receive a government-funded flight and a $1,000 stipend upon confirmation of their exit. Homeland Security officials argue that this move is designed to save taxpayers significant amounts of money. According to data provided by the DHS, a forced deportation process costs the government an average of $17,121 per individual. In contrast, the stipend program is seen as a cost-effective alternative that also reduces the strain on overcrowded detention centers and court dockets. This new measure is a part of a broader, intensified effort by the Trump administration to curb illegal immigration and tighten control over the U.S. southern border. Since returning to power, President Trump has reinstated several policies from his first term, while introducing new ones aimed at deterring undocumented migrants. Deportation numbers have surged, with nearly 66,000 individuals removed from the U.S. within the first 100 days of his new term. Family detention centers, once heavily criticized for their impact on children, have been brought back into operation, while legal aid for unaccompanied minors have seen severe cuts. These developments come at a time when the United States is experiencing a historic high in its foreign-born population. As of 2023, nearly 47.8 million immigrants were residing in the U.S., with an estimated 11 million of them undocumented. Many of these individuals have lived in the country for over a decade, raising families and contributing to the economy. Immigrants, regardless of status, are a vital part of the U.S. labor force, contributing billions in taxes and significantly shaping industries such as agriculture, construction, and caregiving. Critics of the $1,000 self-deportation offer argue that the program may oversimplify the complex reasons behind undocumented migration. Many of those targeted by the program have deep roots in the U.S., including U.S.-born children, community ties, and long-term employment. Human rights organizations warn that such policies, while less aggressive on the surface, may pressure vulnerable individuals into making life-altering decisions without legal representation or full knowledge of their rights. There are also concerns about the ethical implications of offering monetary incentives for departure, particularly in cases involving asylum seekers or those fleeing violence. From a strategic standpoint, the administration insists that this approach is a practical way to reduce the migrant population without resorting to mass raids or extended detentions. Supporters say it offers dignity and a choice to undocumented migrants while protecting national interests. However, immigration experts question the actual effectiveness of the program, noting that similar efforts in the past have yielded limited results. The offer of $1,000 may not be enough to motivate individuals who have risked everything to seek better lives in the United States. The debate around this policy underscores the broader tensions within American immigration discourse, balancing border control and national sovereignty among humanitarian obligations and economic realities. With the 2026 midterm elections approaching, immigration remains one of the most polarizing and politically charged issues on the national agenda. In the wider global context, policies like this could set a precedent as other countries monitor the US approach, especially those in Europe and parts of Africa facing rising migration numbers. Questions around voluntary migration, incentives, and state-led deportation policies are likely to spark wider international debates. What remains clear is that the Trump administration's latest move is not just a domestic policy. It is a bold, controversial experiment in reshaping the global migration conversation. I am Moyosore Adibi for Souq News TV.
Take Nigeria because it's the mind that needs to first of all be rebranded.
He said he's going to be putting Nigerian labor, Nigeria content and materials first.
If you say Nigeria first and it is just us down here that, are pushing that agenda, it's going to be a big struggle.
Do you think Nigerian firms, Nigerian organizations should start looking at getting their staff involved in this market or buying to keep for their staff?
Within this side, let's also learn citizen diplomacy. See something. This is Souq business landscape.
Welcome back. Many thanks for joining us on Souq Business Landscape. Apologies for that break in transmission. And now to the story that Swift was taking a look at before we went on that break. It's about the Clearing Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa that has warned the federal government against implementing the 15% tariff on petrol and diesel, arguing that Nigeria's domestic refining capacity is still too weak to absorb such policy without triggering shocks. Before I come to Brenda, yes, Swift, I need you to finish up.
So for me, I do not think that is an issue. I think what is going on is personal interest here, because if they put in that 15%, first of all, it will trigger or it will boost local refineries. There are a lot of local refineries that are not meeting their capacities, or there are certain things that they need from the federal government that are not being met because the federal government knows that there are other people that can just import fuel and that will balance up. When importation is harder, for example, we found out that I think it's Oando has pulled out from totally importing petroleum products right about now. So there are local refineries that Oando can even support with manpower or whatever, mainstream and downstream, so that we can meet this target. So it is, for me, it is critical. This is the way to build the economy. It's going to be tough at the beginning, but this is the way to build the economy. It will also boost Dangote too. Dangote talked about the fact that he has increased his output. It will also
no, he's working towards doing that.
He increased it between, I think, August, September. He added whether 1,000, I don't know how much he added, but there was a slight increase. And he now said he's working towards a larger scale increase. So it will push other smaller local refineries that we don't even know about, and it would also motivate the new ones that are coming. So I think it's a good one. Of course, for FX, it's critical because sorting out those dollars to export is not very
okay. Oluwabenga, do you agree with Parker's position that Nigeria's current domestic petroleum market or refining capacity is too weak for us to start stifling foreign marketers that are importing the products to complement or supplement domestic refining capacity, so that, because currently we are just doing 40% according to statistics of meeting domestic capacity, that we should allow for us to meet 80%, at least allow BUA to finish building, to come mainstream, allow some other modular refineries to operate at at least even its maximum capacity, for us to attain 80% before the 15% tariff on petroleum products by the government.
Packers' position right from time. I have always been saying that the 15% tariff will not help the country. I have always been saying that we don't have the capacity to meet our local production needs yet, and that for that kind of tariff to be implemented, you need to